right. Well, then that leads us nicely into our next segment. This is a part where I think Mike wants to eventually make this an actual thing, but
I really do. I want to make this a show.
Well, we're gonna start light. We're gonna start fun. This is a fun one, I think.
Okay.
This one holds, I think, not a whole lot of weight, but normally how this will go is, so the segment is Mike questions everything, as that Mike he baits me. He's always baiting me. He's trying to get me to go full on tinfoil hat mode.
Jesse had a good one.
He did. And so it's basically, what it's going to be, and this is, I think, where Mike and I can take turns on, which scares me, but where we pick a conspiracy, and then we can go through different things with it. We can we'll say the conspiracy, and then at the end we can all say whether we believe it, don't believe it, and then but from after we give whether we do or don't believe. And then if we can tag something to it, as in it could be like, I don't believe that, but that's fun. Or I do believe that, but it's stupid. Like, it can be all kinds of things, because conspiracies can be everything. And I want to put a disclaimer. Well, I guess, no, never mind. I was going to say it because we don't believe in some of these, but some of them we might. All right.
This could be interesting.
All right. So this one, like I said, this is one, and this is also okay. I'm gonna read it, and then you guys, and at the end we'll comment. So the conspiracy theory is that Paul McCartney died in 1966. Before you guys comment, so at the time, around 1966 and the following year, 1967, the Beatles held. Not just the Beatles, but the Beatles and the record label held lookalike contests specifically for Paul.
Yep.
This is that's factual stuff.
Facts.
There is one of the supposed winners was a man named Billy Shears. And then in 1966, 1967, around that time, the Beatles stopped touring. They no longer toured anymore. So if they did perform, it was like a one-time thing, or they performed for something on TV, whatever. And then a college radio station or a college radio DJ is what kind of like this had been coming around that time. People had been like supposed corners had leaked it and this and that Paul McCartney had left a recording session and was in a car accident where he was decapitated. And that the label and the MI6 or whatever they're basically they're CIA.
Yeah.
Decided that they needed to keep it under wraps because of one, the Beatles were. I know, dude. I can feel it.
You can feel it land.
I felt like my hair go down.
It's a hefty boy.
Yeah. Shame on us for not catching it.
Yeah.
But So since then, people would be they're trying to find clues in everything since that release. And one of the clues that they reference is the Sgt. Pepper's album. They said it looks like a funeral. Paul's in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
The Abbey Road album. People said it's like a funeral procession where it's like, I forget what it is. Person in white. There's a person in white, person in a suit. Paul is barefoot and has a cigarette pointing down, which apparently in Italy is a sign of the dead or a sign for the dead, something like that. And then the
flowers say like Paul is dead or something like that?
Yeah. In the Sgt. Pepper one, but in Abbey Road, in the car in the back there's a bug, and the license plate says 28 if. And the reason that why people question that was because Paul supposedly died at 27 years old, so he would have been 27 if he hadn't died at that time, or sorry, he would have been 28 had he not died. So another thing that they found is they started to do around this time playing songs backwards became really popular, and in what song is it? There's a song where I guess the line is repeated. It's like, I think it's 9. 9 is repeated a lot. And when you play it backwards, it's supposedly, you can hear, "Turn me on, dead man."
Yep.
And then another one where it's John, it's John Lennon singing. And there's a part where I forget what song this is, but he plays it back and it says, "Paul is dead, man. I miss him. I miss him." Actually, that one I pulled up and I heard, and it's interesting because his voice sounds like he's sad when he's saying it. "Paul is dead, man. I miss him. I miss him." So that was a weird one. And then people have pointed out that from 1966 on, that Paul's height seems to be different than it was in the earlier years of the Beatles. So, first off, is this a conspiracy that we've heard before?
I've actually watched this documentary.
Dude, me too.
Yeah.
I've never heard it before.
Never heard? Okay, cool.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that, like, there's a lot of things that kind of like
Are weird.
Are so weird. So to me, like, when it comes to like the playing music backwards thing and like hearing messages, personally, I think that's all just like, you're going to hear what you want to hear. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't really hold too much weight onto that, because other than Missy Elliott, you know, it's really hard to record something in reverse and then make it say something, you know, the other way around. But there are a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of weird coincidences and things like that. And then like, if you actually watch that documentary, they point out like pictures side by side of, they call Fall, like fake Paul versus Paul McCartney. And like, they're like, the ears are I think higher on one than the other. Like like there was obviously surgery that was done, and you can tell that there was surgery done on Paul McCartney. But then like, there's also the people that say like, oh, well, he got in an accident and they had to repair it. You know, but then others say like, oh no, it was done so that he would look just like Paul McCartney. So like, it's one of those things where there's just enough weird about it to question it, and it'd be super, super interesting if it was real. I don't know if I believe it or not, but they actually say the same thing about Avril Lavigne. So if you actually look at it, like between Avril Lavigne back then and Avril Lavigne now, like they say they can point out a lot of the same similarities. Like you can, like, this is somebody who was her best friend, who they always said like they looked alike, that replaced her because they need to keep that like icon in place. They need to keep that star in place, right? So I mean, there's, you know, without sounding like too crazy, like there's a lot of things that are like, oh, that does kind of make sense, or that is really weird and strange. I think the biggest case out of all of them is this Paul McCartney one, where there's so much like fact and evidence, and like, you know, like if the there it is.
He landed on me.
if this is all real and they're hiding all that imagery and like the record covers and stuff like that, like it's a very blatant, like it's hidden in plain sight type thing. But you know, it's also one of those things like, I guess we'll never know, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I think it's definitely super interesting.
All right. So I guess we can go down. Believe or don't believe?
I believe it.
You believe it?
I actually kind of believe it, because the Beatles at the time were like the biggest phenomenon in the world, right? It's kind of like the same thing like with Elvis, with Michael Jackson, things like that. Like when you have something that's so big that impacts such a huge population, for it to just be shattered would shatter like a lot for, you know, not only business, like there had to have been companies that even indirectly were related to the Beatles and still were like, their livelihoods relied on the Beatles being the Beatles, you know? There are so many, you know, like things that like, you know, the gears were turning, and like, you can't just throw a wrench in that because, oh shit, like the biggest face on the planet is gone, you know? Like when it comes to like Elvis, right? Like Elvis was the biggest thing, but then you also saw Elvis's decline. Yeah. Everybody watched him kind of fall apart, right? Whereas the Beatles, you're at the height of stardom, and then this happens, and they're like, what do we do now? Well, let's get a replacement for him. Because I think one of the biggest clues was that he changed hands, right?
Oh yeah.
Like initially he was right-handed, right. And then all of a sudden he's left-handed. Yeah. All of a sudden he's left-handed playing it, like his instrument. So and that was like one of the biggest clues that were like, wait a second, hold on. Like, no, it's just the way the picture is like a mirror image. Like, but no, he's playing with the fucking different hand. Yeah. So, you know, if they're gonna do that with anybody, it's gonna be the biggest artist on the planet, to me.
I don't think so.
So,
too many secrets. Somebody would have blabbed by now.
I think people have though. Apparently, this is where you're getting a lot of the conspiracy.
That's where you get a lot of the.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. That's awful big to be keeping a secret.
It is a very big secret to keep.
It's a big secret, and also it's kind of. So I understand it. So one of the things that made it compelling for me was the money for it, right? Because like, you know, we've had icons have died, people have died young, but nothing. I guess no one that had as big as what the Beatles were at that time. Because it'd be different had he died like even like a year before that. It'd been very different because the Beatles wouldn't. I don't think they had come to the United States yet or any of that stuff. And then if you go even like a couple more years later, it would have probably been maybe probably less different. But like I forget what other artists came around that time too that would have like lessened the blow of something like the Beatles that were taking over the world.
Yeah.
But for me, it's one of those things where it's like I don't care if it's like. If it is or not, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't change for me.
Yeah, it doesn't affect me whatsoever.
Yeah, like I still love Hey Jude.
Yeah,
regardless if it was if it was Paul or someone else. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
it's still muy interesante.
It's muy interesante. Anyway, so yeah, that's a good one. I think, or a good one to start with. We'll see how.
We'll see how people take that one.
We'll see what kind of response people get from it.
Hey.